I told them to leave, my demons depressed. They want me to die, they know I'm a threat. I have a few things to get off my chest. I've been in the darkness, not living the best. Searching for real, I wonder what's next. Pushing my limits, no time for the rest. It can get ugly, I'm willing to bet. Play the wrong cards, you end up in debt.
Welcome to the Brothers Compass podcast, where we help you find your way after service. We do that by checking in with other veterans who have faced the same difficult transition that you are. We check in with them and see how they've transitioned into civilian life and what they're doing to overcome that transition. And today, I'm joined by one of the best, Staff Sergeant Caleb Perkins from the 3rd Ranger Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. Caleb, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me on, man. It's an honor.
Yeah, man. So I was thinking back in preparation for this, and I think the last time that I saw you in person was Kandahar, Afghanistan, 2010. I was a contractor and you were a sniper.
Yeah.
Does this sound right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that's the last time I saw you was there as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was many moons ago. Many moons.
It was many moons ago now. So how much longer did you stay in after 2010? Like the last time I saw you?
I ended up getting out in 2013. So, yeah, it's about 3 years afterwards. I ended up doing 2 more combat deployments after that.
Okay. And I'm assuming those were both Afghanistan?
Yeah, both in Afghanistan as a sniper, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, man, before we dive into the weeds of all that, can you kind of take me back to the beginning of it? Like, what in your mind as a young man was like, I'm going to go join the Ranger Regiment? You know, like, how did you arrive at that decision?
Well, it was, so I guess I'll go back. So I graduate. So me and my wife, we ended up getting married when I was in college, and we were about halfway through our bachelor's program, and we ended up getting married. And so after that, I ended up graduating from Glenville State College, which is a state college here in West Virginia. And I graduated with a bachelor's in behavioral science. So it's like more psychology, sociology, kind of background. And so my thought was, well, I think my next step would be to go get my master's degree and be a psychologist. Because I always liked kind of like the criminal psychology side of it. And I was like, dude, I could be Dr. Caleb Perkins and make the big bucks, right? And,
Right.
which was my plan as a young man. And we had been at war in both Iraq and Afghanistan at this point. I never really felt like the call to go. Not that I had anything against it. I had a lot of friends that were in college that while they were in the program, they ended up dropping out before they graduated to go serve, which I was like, hey, if you feel that call, definitely knock it out and go do it. And so I was like, well, I think this is our route. And I was more thinking about me and my wife and, that sort of thing, and being like, I got to focus on our family and what we're going to do. So we graduated and I got accepted to Marshall University. We were Marshall type deal. They did like a whole, thing on that down in Huntington, West Virginia. And I got accepted to the grad program, the master's program in psychology. And so I'm in Huntington, West Virginia. Everything looks like it's working great. I got a job down there at this pharmaceutical company that ends up making cataract lenses that was in Huntington. So it was a great paying job. I was getting everything taken care of. I was going through the master's program, and I'm day one, master's program. The professor's giving the syllabus and he's going through it and stuff. And all of us are in there, listening to the professor. And I remember I was sitting there paying attention, and then all of a sudden I heard behind me, like, you need to go into the Army. And it shocked me so much that I turned around, and there was an older gentleman that was behind me, and I was like, what did you say? And he looked at me, he's like, I never said anything to you. Different voice. And I'm like, wild. So I'm like, this is kind of crazy. So I'm sitting there listening to the professor again, and then I hear it again. You need to go in the Army. And this time it was more stern. Bro, I went pale white. I felt like I was going to throw up. And I got up out of the classroom in the middle of them going over the syllabus, and I walked out and went back to our apartment where my wife was. She saw me. She was like, hey, how'd the first day go? And I'm pale white. She's like, well, what's wrong? What happened? And I was like, I believe God just spoke to me audibly. And she's like, what did he say? I was like, that I need to go in the army. And she's like, what? I was like, I know, because we're at war in Iraq and Afghanistan at this time.
Right.
And so I was definitely not going to go that route unless my wife was on board with it. So we ended up taking about 7 days fasting and praying, and we both prayed about it. And I was like, Lord, if this is what you want me to do, then you're going to have my wife to be on board for that. And I was
Yep.
praying. I was like, well, there's a lot of things you can do in the army. What am I supposed to do? Am I, I already had a bachelor's degree. Am I supposed to go the commission route? Am I supposed to be a counselor in the army? I don't know. So as we were praying, ended up, receiving that I needed to be a Ranger sniper, and I was like, I don't know nothing about that. I didn't even know what Rangers were, and I'm like, I knew what snipers were. I was like, okay, so I'm gonna, shoot long range. Well, previous to this, I never really did nothing like shooting and hunting as a kid. That really wasn't like I'd done it a couple times, but it wasn't something that I was all about.
Right.
And so it was just so that was kind of bizarre. But my wife came back and she's like, I really have peace about this. I think you're supposed to do it. And I'm like, okay. So went to the recruiter, walked in there and talked with him, told him what I wanted to do. I was like, hey, I want to be a Ranger sniper. And he looked at me and he's like, okay, let's write your stuff down. And so he's typing all my information in. He's like, so what's the highest level of education you have? I was like, oh, I have a bachelor's degree. And he's like, oh, well, you want to go the commission route, right? And I was like, can they be Ranger snipers? He's like, no, officers can't. They can be a platoon leader over a sniper platoon, but they can't actually be a sniper. And I was like, oh, well, then I don't want that. And he looked at me and he's like, you want to go be a Ranger sniper? I said, yeah. And this guy, man, he looked at me and he was like, one, you'll never make it. Two, those guys eat babies. And I was like, I'm like and I'm looking at him, I'm like, what are you talking about, man? And he's like, no, they eat babies. You'll never make it. And I was like, can you give me the contract or not? And so he's looking, and that was the RIP contract, option 40. He was looking for it, and they were out. So the only thing he could give me was actually an airborne contract. So I went in to basic 11X with an airborne contract and
Oh,
not
wow.
even had a Ranger contract. Yeah. So I was like, all right, we'll see how this pans out. So it was wild, definitely
I mean,
wild.
so did he advise you to, you know, find the RIP recruiters or like find the Ranger recruiters once you were airborne?
Yeah, well, that's what he was telling me. He said, well, I'm going to give you this airborne contract. And he even told me about the patches building. So I was like, I'm a brand new guy. I don't know nothing about the Army. And he's mentioning this building. Like he was in the 101st and he was airborne qualified and he went to Ranger school and had his Ranger tab. So he was like, you're one that, because at first he was like, yeah, I can get you into, this was my unit, the 101st, and you can go to Ranger school. You can be a Ranger. And I was like, is that Ranger Regiment? And he was like, no. And I didn't even know those were two different things at that point. And then I was like, no, Ranger Sniper. That's what I need to do. So what does that look like? And he's like, well, you're talking about regiment. That's Tambourine guys. He's like, no, we'll have to get you a specific contract for that. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, so he ended up telling me, you need to get this airborne contract. And then if you still have the motivation to go to regiment, you can go to the patches building. And when you get to the patches building, tell them guys are always dropping their Ranger contracts and you should be able to pick one up there. And he even told me that even in basic, there's guys that drop their Ranger contracts in basic and you can sometimes swap contracts with them and stuff. So I was like,
Okay, so
all right.
he did the best he could. It sounds like he didn't try to pull one over on you.
He did. He did the best he could, but he was not excited. And and I don't blame him, because had I looked at me then too, and knowing what I know about regiment, I'd be like, "Yeah, bro, you're not gonna make it. Just stop."
Dude, yes. I think the same thing. Like my recruiter, I don't know why. Like he never said that to me. He never said like you won't make it. He should have said that to me.
Yeah, like, he should have. Like
He
you
should
should have
have.
done the right thing. It'd be like, do you know what the success rate of them going through that program is? That pipeline is pretty extensive, especially during the RIP era.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yes. It was RIP for a reason. They say Ranger Indoctrination Program. I was like, no, they just tried to kill you.
It's just
what it
rest in peace, man. It's like you're
yeah,
just there until you
yeah.
die, and
Yeah, you're gonna die. You're gonna
you're gonna
kill the
die.
little bit of yourself that was there, and then they're gonna rebuild you from muck. So,
Yes.
like, "We're looking for a rock with lips. You, sir, you're perfect.
You, you're the one.
You're the one. Do what we tell you, don't ask questions." "Roger,
Yeah.
sergeant."
Man, I was laughing yesterday or the other day. I recorded another podcast and we were talking about, you know, the success rates from basic training of guys that entered with a RIP contract,
Uh-huh.
who actually made it. And like from my platoon, like at basic, my platoon was full of guys with option 40 contracts.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think, that's 60, 65 guys maybe. And of that group, only 3 of us went all the way. Like
Oh,
only
yeah.
only 3 of us made it to the regiment,
Mhm.
and it's wild. Like I don't know how that happened. You know?
And I would really be curious on the numbers of what is the success rate of someone that went in without the contract and then picked it up. Because I
Yeah.
think if they pick it up there, they're, because it's volunteer. So, they're volunteering for it. And I think a lot of people have that idea, like, this will be great. And then they don't really realize the cost that's with it,
Yeah.
and how much you're going to have to suffer. And so I think the guys that go in that are like, "No, I can do this. Yeah, I want, this guy dropped that. I'm gonna give that a go. I'm gonna volunteer for it. I'm not gonna quit." So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's probably a higher success rate of them, though. I mean, you could do anything. You mechanical injury, you're done. You fail a
Right.
run, you're out. Well, that's how it was when we were at Rick. I mean, you if you didn't make it or didn't show that you were gonna give it everything you had, like they just pulled you out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. Um Yeah, the physical aspect is what it is. It's like
yeah.
you can do that or you can't, or you train hard enough to do it or you don't.
Mhm.
Um, but it's wild how many just failed out because of the mental aspect. They
Oh
they
yeah.
they just got inside their heads and they
Yeah.
talked themselves out of it.
Mhm. Well, and I think that I went into it, so I had a different kind of approach of going into RIP. And I guess backtrack. I did end up going to airborne school and going to the Patches building and picking up a Ranger contract. And so after I graduated airborne, which now it's backwards. I think you end up going to RASP
Yeah,
now
now you go to RASP
afterwards.
first.
Yeah, and then they send you to airborne school afterwards. I guess regiment got tired of paying for guys going to airborne school and then dropping their contract because that's what a lot of the guys were doing. They're like, "Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not going. Bye. Thanks for airborne school." I mean, that was a
exactly.
smart move on them. But so I ended up picking up that Ranger contract, and so we're sitting in airborne school and waiting for the bus to come pick us up and the RIP cadre get off the bus, and they're looking at us, and then we probably had 230, 250 guys out in the gravel just waiting with all of our bags.
Yep.
And so they come out and they're all screaming at us and stuff, and we're like, and they're like, and so we see the buses, so we're like getting ready to grab our bags, and they're like, "The buses are not for you nor your bags." And we're like, "What?" And they get in the bus and they're like, "You're gonna run to the RIP barracks down the way." So I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I've got these 2 duffel bags, a rucksack, and all my gear, and I'm just running, man. And there's a ton of us running. There was probably 20 guys though that was in the thing. They're like, "Yeah, I'm not doing this. I'm just not even," like, they didn't even.
No way. They just quit right there.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm not doing that, because they were in their head already, man. They were like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, if it gets to this level, I'm quitting." See, to me, I'm like, "Dude, I felt called to do this," and I was like, "God told me that I need to do this, so it's doing this or dying." So I'm
Yeah.
like, "I'm just gonna do it." Um, so we end up making it up there, and they had the bus behind, and anyone that fell behind the bus, they were just like, "Yep, worldwide, worldwide. Hey, hope you enjoy Korea." Like, they were making fun of those guys hardcore too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because at that point, you're assigned a regiment, and they can
Right.
send you wherever, right? People think, "Oh, you're going wherever the needs of the army are." I was like, "Nah, actually, regiment can send you wherever they want to." So,
Yeah.
you're in that pipeline. Had you quit after airborne school and dropped it, then you would have been needs of the army. So they ended up doing that. We get to the area where we're dropping off our bags, and they're having us dump our bags, looking for contraband and stuff, and then
Yep.
doing unrealistic time hacks. Pack your bags, put it up, and no one's gonna. You got 1 minute. You're not doing 2 duffel bags in a rucksack in 1 minute. That ain't
In
happening.
1 minute. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So, we're failing it, and we're doing push-ups, and I would like to say that I was the guy that was sitting there like, "Come on, guys, we can do it." No, I was not that dude, man. I was not. I was doing push-ups next to this guy, and he's like, "Man, this stinks. If it gets any harder, I'm just gonna quit." And I'm like, "Dude, this is day 0. Like, we
Yeah.
just got here. If you're already thinking about quitting, you're probably not gonna make it." And that dude gets up and leaves. He's like, "Yeah, I'm out." I was like, I'm sure he looks back and is like, that guy was a dirtbag. I was like, dude, if it takes my motivation to keep you here, I won't be here always, you know?
Right.
And I think that's what Rip really instilled in you. You saw the guys leave, and you couldn't sit there and be like, oh, that guy's the motivator for me. And he goes, well, you're done.
Yeah.
So like, it has to be internally driven. And just like you said, it's that mental aspect. Because there were guys that was quitting that were in way better shape than me. I
Yeah.
mean, PT studs. They were way better than me, taller than me, stronger than me, but they broke mentally. And they're like,
Yeah.
I just want to get to a unit, and I'm like, yeah, we're getting to a unit.
Yeah.
But
We're getting there.
yeah, I was like, there's no, and I was telling the guys not to motivate them in any way, but just to let them know the reality of the situation. I was like, you are going to war. There is no doubt in this. Every unit is going and being deployed now to Iraq or Afghanistan. I was like, it's not if you're going, it's when. And I was like,
Right.
do you want to go with this unit or do you want to go with someone else? And nothing against them, but it's a different mission, right? And so it's
Right.
what mission do you want to do while you're over there? And we need them all. You know, I'm not the guy that's just, soft only. I honor and respect everybody that serves in whatever
Absolutely, man.
capacity they did. I was like, dude, some of my best friends were supply. I'm like, yeah, I need good gear.
Yeah.
We're gonna be best buddies. I'm not making fun of you. We're gonna be tight.
Yep. Yeah.
Anybody that
Exactly
can
right,
help
man.
you.
Everybody plays their part.
Oh yeah. And well, in regiment, most of the supply guys were guys from the line anyway. You know
Right.
that.
Yeah. Just
You know.
they got hurt or something.
Yep. Yeah. And so I'm like, I'm not gonna downgrade on them. I'm like, hey, you want to come out to the sniper range? Come and shoot some sniper rifles. Let's go do this. Let's go have fun.
Nice.
You know. So
Man, so
yeah,
okay,
Rip
so you
was wild.
so you make it through RIP.
Mhm.
I'm guessing that
Yeah.
you made it through RIP.
I made it through. Well, I've got a few stories in Rip if you want to hear that. I don't know
Oh
how.
man, lay them on me.
So,
I'm all for a
uh,
good story.
yeah, I heard the clip where you were talking about eating beans off a boot. I was like,
Yeah, man.
yes, yeah. So I went in 2005, and so it
Yep.
was in August of 2005 is when I enlisted in the Army, and I ended up actually going into regiment in 2006. And so while I was in that RIP class, we do all the things that's required. And I would wake up every day and they were having this thing in the barracks where all the guys were like, quit tomorrow mentality. And I'm like, no, my mentality is, I'll quit when I'm dead. So it doesn't matter to me if a man can do this, then I can do this, and I'm going to stick it out. So I would say, creating that mental fortitude was probably one of the best things that I could do, especially in RIP. Well, we end up getting out to Coal Range. So we started with about 250, 280 guys. By the time we got to Coal Range, we ended up having about 60 guys because
Yeah.
they were just weeding out hardcore. So there's probably only 60 of us that actually made it out to Coal Range. And then the ruck march out, we ended up losing about 10 more just on the ruck march.
Oh wow.
Um, because we rucked from the barracks all the way out to Coal Range. And
Yeah.
it was like if you don't make it here at this time, you're done. And dude, it was brutal. Um, so we get out to Coal Range, we're setting out our stuff, and it's the first day, and we got our rucksacks out there, and we're in a little circle, and the cadre are having this bonfire over in the corner, and it's nighttime, and they're like cooking hot dogs, telling the guys, "Hey, if you guys want some hot dogs, all you got to do is quit. Come over here. We got cocoa too," because it was freezing cold. We just got
Yep.
done mucking, and when you sweat and it's cold, like it turns to ice. So you're just sitting there like shivering and freezing, and they're by a fire cooking hot dogs and sipping on cocoa, and you're
Yep.
like, "Yeah, the mental games are coming. That's
Oh,
the
yeah, man.
mental games for sure."
Yeah, you
And
start thinking the 82nd looks good right now.
yeah, exactly. They're like, "I just want to go to any unit that's not going to treat me like this." It's like, well,
Right.
good for you, man. Go do that. Um, so we were sitting there, and nobody quit to go like get the hot dogs or the cocoa. So they one of the cadre members came over, and they were telling us, they're like, "We're a part of TRADOC, so we're required to give you 6 to 8 hours of sleep tonight. So you guys need to prepare to rack out and to get some sleep." And we're sleeping, outside. And all the guys, he leaves and he comes back, and I look at them, and they're like getting their sleep sacks out and doing that. And I'm just sitting there on my rucksack, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "RIP is not TRADOC. It's under USACOM." I was like, "They do not have to give you any sleep. This is a game. Do not go to sleep." They're like, "No, no, man, no. We're gonna get 6 to 8 hours of sleep." I'm like, "Not gonna happen." I was like, "You do that, I'll stay here." And one guy, man, he got into his sleep sack. He got completely naked. He's in his sleep sack naked out in cold range. He's like, "Man, I'm cold. My clothes are cold, so I'm gonna get naked and get in my sleep sack to get warm." And I'm like, "You are an idiot. Do not do that." And sure enough, 30 minutes later, they come with a foghorn. "We're a part of USACOM. We're not a part of TRADOC. Hit the wood line, RIP." And so they have us run to the wood line. And the guy that was naked, he is running naked from the end to the wood line, dude. And it was wild. And so as we're coming back, and they're like, "Which one of you nasty ones is running naked?" And he's like, "Oh, it's me, Sergeant." So he's out there. He's like, "Low crawl," and this dude low crawls through a fire anthill,
No.
butt naked. Oh, dude, he was tore up. They didn't know he was going to do that. They just thought it would be funny having him low crawl naked. But yeah, dude, covering fire ants. He's getting ate up. He's rolling, screaming, and I'm sitting there. It was a crazy. That was a crazy night for sure. And he actually ended up making it. All the
No
way through.
kidding.
Yeah, I'm like the streaker. Out of
The
everything.
streaker.
He had that no quit in him,
Yeah.
fire ants, butt naked. I guess he was ready for it. But yeah, so we ended up doing all the different games. They were like, "Hit the wood line." So we would run and hit the wood line. We'd run back. And then they were like, "Go and make a wood line and bring your wood line to that wood line." So we had to like cut these saplings and run like trees to this other spot.
Yep.
I'm like, oh man, it was fun. I thought it was comical. I was laughing the whole time. I was like, you can't make this stuff up, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do the cadre members do? Just sit around like, "This was great. I love this." This was
Right.
complete torture to them, you know? And I got their perspective too, in RIP. And it wasn't just to crush you. They knew that the guys that were gonna make it through were gonna be in the stack with their brothers. And they
Yeah.
did not want somebody that was gonna be weak or fall apart to have their back, and they're like, we're not gonna send you to regiment and have our friends killed, nor die as a ranger if you don't deserve to. And I'm
Right.
like, I can respect that, you know? So,
Absolutely, man.
yeah, so it was wild, dude. It was a wild time. And so after when we're out in Cold Range, I'll give you another story that was there. And we ended up doing the land nav portion out in Cold Range. And so we're getting all of our points and stuff, and they're getting ready to release us to go do it. Which I was like, this is awesome. Now we don't have cadre around us. We're not going to get crushed. And I love land nav. I enjoyed it. I was like, dude, I was super confident in it. I was like, out of all
Yeah.
of my skills in the military, I'm like, I came from West Virginia. So, I love the woods, and I love, looking at maps, reading maps, and using my compass and uh, getting to points. I love that. And so they started us at nighttime. Like
Yep.
it was early in the morning where there's no daylight. So I'm looking at these points, and I'd never been out to that land nav. area. So I didn't
Yeah,
know
Yankee
anything.
North.
I'm just looking at a map, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this will be the best point for me to get to. So I run to that point, use my pace count. I find that point, and I'm like feeling super confident because it's at night, and I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. I got this. Second point, it's still nighttime. I end up going to this location, and it's through a swamp. And I am like points where I'm knee deep and like waist deep and almost to my neck, like in the swamp. And I can hear pigs out there, and they tell you,
Oh,
don't be
yeah.
attacked by a hog and get mauled to death and all this and that. And I'm like, oh, they're just messing with us. And I'm like, no, there's legit hogs out here. I'm like, oh, this is great. So I'm wading through this swamp area, and I get up to the other side, and I'm like heading. And at that point, I knew I veered, so I didn't know if where I was going to be able to get to that next point. And if you don't get that point, you're not finding any of the other ones because you're
Right.
just lost in the sauce. So I get to the end of my pace count, and I don't see that point. And now it's like early morning, the sun's up, and there was this down pine tree that was out there. And I'm sitting there, I'm doing everything to try to find this point. I'm doing the clover leaf, I'm doing the box method, I'm going, this direction 50 meters, this direction 50 meters. And I'm coming back to this like downed pine tree. And so I sat on this pine tree, man, and I was frustrated. I was exhausted, couldn't find it. And I'm like, I'm gonna fail. I went through all this and I'm gonna fail land nav because I can't find this point. And
Yeah.
I was angry, and I screamed in the middle of the woods, and I'm me and God having a conversation. I'm like, God, I could have finished 2 semesters in the master's program. You sent me here and now I'm gonna fail. I was angry. I'd like to say I was that awesome man of faith where I was like, God has this, brother. I was like, no, I was ticked. And
Yep.
I'm blaming God, and I'm like, I can't believe it. I went through all this suffering. And so as I'm screaming in the middle of the woods, I look up, and there was a white-tailed deer that was like 20 yards from me. It was a doe, walks out,
Just
look,
looking at you like you're
yeah,
crazy.
just looks at me, and I'm like, all right. I literally just screamed. And I'd went hunting a couple of times before I went in the military, especially for white-tailed deer, and I'm like, that's not normal. I'm like, maybe this deer has rabies or something, or maybe it ate an MRE, I don't know. It's just acting funky. And so I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this deer, and it's just like milling around, and then it looks at me again. And then all of a sudden I remembered in Numbers where God spoke through a donkey. And I'm like, I was like, is this deer? And I wasn't thinking this deer is going to speak to me. I was just looking at it. I was like, that's just a weird thought. Why? And I was like, in my mind, the way that I was making it, rational, I was like, I'm going to try and touch this deer. I'm going to see how close I can get to it. And so I get up and I start walking to this deer, and it doesn't run off. And I'm like, it legit sees me. So I walk closer to this deer. The deer kind of looks at me and then gingerly starts to walk like 10 to 15 meters. And then I'm like, oh, okay. Well, finally it's just had enough of me or whatever. And then it stops and it looks back at me. And I'm like, I got this eerie feeling, and I'm like, what is going on here? So I'm like, well, I'm going to try to touch this deer again. So I'll walk up to it, and it lets me get about 5 meters from it. And then it walks off again, another 15 to 20 meters. And then it stops and it turns and looks at me. And I'm like, what is going on here? I follow this deer for 150 yards, man, walking just like that. This deer leads me to the point.
No way.
I'm not even kidding you. I'm at the point that I veered 150 yards off, and I see the point. Like, we crest over this hill, and the deer walks to the sign, and I'm like, what? So I go up to this sign, and I'm looking at it. I click it, and I'm like, yep. And I'm train associating. I'm like, this is the point. And while I'm sitting there plotting to go to my next point, this rippy comes out of the bushes and jumps out of the bushes and looks at me, and the deer bolts off. And the deer's like 5 feet from me at this point. I could have touched it, but I'm so
Right.
excited about the point. I don't even care about the deer anymore, and it bolts off. And this dude comes out, and you're not allowed to talk to guys that's on the course, but he looks at me and he's like, bro, did you see that deer? I'm like, yeah, I followed the deer to the point. And he's like, what? You're crazy. I'm like, I know too. I don't care. I gotta go. So I started running to my other points because at this point I was probably an hour behind. And then I ended up running to every one of those points, finding all of them and coming back. And so people are like, dude, how'd you make it through RIP? I was like, God and a deer. And they're like, what? I'm like, not dude. And it wasn't because I such great faith or whatever. It was literally me falling apart there. And I was blaming God and I was like, look, Lord. And God's like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. This is gonna be funny. When I tell people that,
That's
when they're
wild,
like,
man. That
yeah,
is a
you're like, you're
crazy
nuts,
story.
man. I'm like, I've never seen it since, and I've hunted a lot of deer. I love hunting, so but
That's
yeah, I've
so
never had
wild,
one
man.
like that. And I was like, well, if he needs to, he can send it however he wants to. And I really like the fact that that guy saw it too. It wasn't me just being insane and just
Right.
seeing something. I was like, no, he legit saw it, and then it bolted off. And I was like, that's how a deer's supposed to act. Okay, I'm not crazy then, and it's not rabid.
Yeah.
So, so we ended up graduating 34 guys from our RIP class at the end. And when I went in to basic, so I was 11X, and they made me 11 Charlie. So I was a part of the mortar section. And which was actually because at first I thought, oh man, I don't know nothing about mortars. I didn't even know a mortar existed. What is this thing? And I didn't even know regiment had mortars. I'm like, how's that a thing? And but whenever I got to the mortar platoon, I kind of saw how God designed that, because it was actually easier for me to go from the mortar section to the sniper section than it would have been from the line.
No kidding.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I got to do several deployments after I graduated, they said U-10 go to First Ranger Battalion, U-10 going to Second, U-10 going to Third, and I went to Third Ranger Battalion. And when I got there, they gave me a packing list and was like, "Hey, we already sent the first couple chalks already to Afghanistan." I literally graduated RIP, and I was packing my bags and leaving in a week to go to Afghanistan.
That's wild.
It was instant. And I'm like, I don't know nothing. I don't know anything, But it was really cool how God orchestrated that, because I was able to go on that deployment, be in the mortar platoon, which I messed up when I got to the mortar platoon. I told them right off the bat, I was like, yeah, my goal is to go to snipers. And they're like, they did not like that, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, they crushed me. It was awesome. Uh, which you know how mortars are, dude. People talk about all the shenanigans that goes on in line platoons, and I'm like, yeah, the mortars are known as the feral children of battalion, and the well known. There's a lot of games there, nonstop.
Oh yeah, man. It's Lord of the Flies over there for sure.
Oh, yeah. I was like, don't make enemies with a mortar. He has a lot of pent up aggression, and we'll take it out on you.
Man, yeah, dude. When I left Charlie Company and went to HHC,
Mhm.
that was my first exposure to the mortar platoon at all. And so, dude, I was always feeling bad for those mortar privates, man. Like they were just getting destroyed and just messed with by anybody at
Oh,
HHC.
yeah,
Anybody.
yeah.
So like one of the guys in my section, he thought it was funny to have the mortar privates call me fat, you know? And dude, I'm like the furthest thing from fat, I was like lean and, but anyway, he would like a mortar private would walk by and he'd be like, you call Sergeant Landers fat, And so he'd be like, you're fat, Sergeant, Then I'd be like, yeah, get out, and just make a whole thing of it,
Yeah. Well, and see the thing with in the line, it's like you have that platoon unity in the line. So it's like, first platoon guys don't mess, second platoon guys don't mess with first platoon guys. Like there's this like thing, right? But when you're in the mortar platoon, you're attached to HHC, and you've
Yeah.
got recce, snipers, K9, all those guys that are there that come from the line who are like, team leader, squad leader, and above, and they all mess with you. So it's not like
Yeah.
you have one squad leader. No, you've got 100, and
Yeah.
they like to play games.
That's wild, man. I'm not
but I
envious of
enjoyed it,
that.
man. I mean, it honestly, I enjoyed the time that I was there, and and I took everything as it came. I wasn't disgruntled because I was placed there. I was like, nope. If my job is to do a 60 handheld millimeter mortar and be on this 60 team, then I'm gonna crush it. And what if when and if they need me, I'm gonna do what I need to do and be excellent at it. So I'll hump extra mortar rounds, whatever, which actually helped me when I was in sniper section. So,
Yeah.
those sniper rifles are not light, and you're humping a lot of weight. And a lot of time I was even carrying mortar rounds and carrying sniper equipment too. So I mean,
Oh, wow.
you just never know what you're going to cross load on the mission.
Right.
And after the deployment, I did 2 deployments as a mortar, and then while I was in the mortar section, they started having me work sniper security. So like on my second deployment, I was in Iraq, and they didn't really need 60 handheld mortar teams or nothing like that. So they're like, "Hey, we can use some guys on sniper security." And so I worked with the snipers on that deployment. I was going with them, setting up the ladders, doing multi-level climbs, getting into spots, and I was learning about the job. And I was like just gaining everything because I was like, I'm going to get here and I'm going to go through this selection because you have to go through another selection to get into snipers.
Right.
And I'm gonna, and I'm like, I'm gonna crush it because this is where I'm supposed to go. And so I learned a lot from that. And I think that that was, God's hand like guiding me, even though I wouldn't have chose that route. I've been like, I'm gonna do this.
Right.
So I enjoyed that. So it was a lot of fun.
Man, that's so
First
cool.
deployment.
So, all right, so you've done the 2 deployments.
Mhm.
You go to sniper selection
Well, I went to
and
Ranger school after the second one. So after my
oh, that's
first
right.
deployment, they sent me to Ranger school. And while I was in pre-Ranger, I ended up falling and tearing my ACL. So,
Oh,
well,
man.
ACL, MCL, it was partial tears. And so that jacked me up. And so I went to Iraq working sniper security with a knee brace on. Like I was not 100%, but I was good enough to do what I needed to do. And I wasn't
Right.
gonna miss that deployment. I didn't want to be on rear D. I'm like, nope, I'm here for a reason. I want to go.
Yeah.
So and then after I healed up after the second deployment, went to Ranger school, came back with my tab, and then ended up going on another deployment to Afghanistan, which I was working a 60 handheld team and working with the snipers. So we were like doing some cross training there, which is cool because I was able to be with the sniper platoon sergeant on that deployment and worked it out. And then I was in my reenlistment window. So, because I only had a 3-year contract. And so
Oh,
my
okay.
my first enlistment was 3 years, so I was coming into the window, and I was like, "Hey, I'll reenlist if, I get a slot to come to snipers," and he's like, "Well, it's not guaranteed. You gotta go through selection, do all this stuff," but he's like, "You're pretty squared away. I think you'll do good," and I ended up crushing it, and then going to snipers, and they reclassed me to, 11 Bravo. So
Yeah.
that was cool.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a really cool pathway, man. I
Mhm.
didn't realize that that was your path. I thought you'd come from the line.
No. Yeah. Yeah, well, and I appreciate working as an attachment with the mortar platoon because I got to get well diversed in every company and being attached to them, which helped me when I was a sniper. Because as a sniper, you're just going to work with this one platoon. You could work with whatever company, whatever platoon, and you need to be able to do that. So I was able to do that. At a younger rate as a 60 handheld on whatever
Yeah.
platoon they assign me to. And it's like, all right, well, you gotta, make friends or enemies. It's better
Right.
to make
Yeah.
friends, you gotta work with them. And so being that attachment and having that, I already had some years under my belt to do that. And I think that matured me a lot as a ranger too.
Oh,
And
yeah, for
and
sure,
being
man.
married, while the other guys were like losing their minds on the weekend, it was like, no, I was home, studying,
Yeah.
working out, being, squared away. Yeah, so
Right. That's what I was gonna say, man, is you coming in already having done a college degree, already having been married for several years, like, dude, that put you light years ahead of, the 18, 19, 20-year-old guys that are showing up with
right.
none of that,
Yeah. Well, it's funny, so I'm only 3 or 4 years older than a lot of the guys, and they called me, like, the old man. And, well, even when I got the snipers, they'd call me Papa Perkins. They're like, "Oh, Papa Perkins." And I'm like, "I'm not old enough to be your dad. Like, I don't, I'm not that
Right.
old." But they're like, "No, you act that way and you're married so that it grounded you so you're not losing your mind." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I
Yeah.
guess
How's
you
it
can."
feel to be married, Grandpa?
Yeah, I was like, "Pretty good. I have dinner ready to go." And I was like, I get to go sit down and read a book with my wife and hang out. So,
Yeah.
you enjoy
Yeah.
the weekend. Don't let me get a phone call at 2 a.m. to come bail you out.
Exactly, man. Exactly.
uh, but yeah,
Oh man. All right. So
it's
you've
good.
so you've been through Ranger School, you've made it to
Mhm,
sniper selection,
mhm.
and then kind of talk me through the rest of your career as a sniper.
Yep. So on my fourth deployment, that is was in 2009, and I was in Afghanistan in Kandahar. And on that deployment, that's the deployment where I ended up kneeling on the pressure plate IED. And on that deployment, which it was actually towards the end of the deployment, last mission of the deployment, we
No
ended up,
way.
yeah. So for OPSEC reasons, I won't give a lot of details on it, but we're going after a high value target. As a sniper, I'm getting in an overwatch position. Afterwards, getting down off the building. We secured the guy, not one shot fired because we're ninjas like that, Like, hey, bad guy, this is you. You're coming with us.
Wake up.
There you go. I mean, we did a lot of a lot of missions like that, and I know there's a lot of controversy in the soft community where they're like, "Oh, Rangers and SEALs, they're always back at each other doing this," and I was like, "Well, I mean, if you looked at our track record, we had a pretty good one. I mean, we could
Yeah.
get in like ninjas, nab a dude, and bring him out without his security team even knowing that he was gone." I was like,
Right.
"That's pretty impressive." And so we were moving towards the exfil, and you know how we all do when we're moving towards our exfil location, waiting for the Chinook to come get us. We kneel down and we're lowering our silhouette. Well, when I kneel down, I kneel right on top of a pressure plate IED, and it blows me into the air. And all I can hear is like my bell is ringing. Like if you ever played football, you got hit in the head or in a car wreck, it's like,
Yep.
and I end up hitting the ground and I'm disoriented. I don't even know what happened to me. I didn't even know I knelt on a bomb. And so I'm like trying to fix my night vision because I can't see nothing. And Will Golian ends up, he was my sniper buddy. He ends up running over to me. He's like, "Caleb, you all right? You all right, man?" And I'm like, "Dude, I can't get my night vision to work." And he's like, "They're in your face." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah," because I thought it was an RPG that shot low and blew me up in the air. But he's like, "You nailed on a bomb." And I was like, "Oh, snap." And he's like, "The night vision got blown into my eyes. So all the plastic and glass and stuff went into my eyes. It burned these shut. It split my nose in half. This is all opened up, burned the left side of my body." And Doc Solly, he ends up running over to me and he puts me in an arm bar and he's like messing with my hand. And I'm like, "Doc, it's my face that hurts. And he's like, I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm taping your finger to your hand." And this finger got blown off and it was hanging on by a flap of skin, this under part of the skin. And so he was taping it so I didn't lose my finger. And these had compound fractures in it. Some of the bones were sticking out, and some of them were like down into the hand. And so he was taping all that up. And so I'm sitting there, and then he starts working on my face and getting me all stabilized. And it's Afghan local time, like 2 a.m. So it's dark.
Right.
He's doing the saline lock under nods, no lights, like a ninja. Like whoop. And I'm like, "Man,
Dude.
you guys." I gave him props. I was like, "Dude, I don't even know how you got that vein because I ended up, when you're blown up, everything shrinks and contracts, and it's
Yeah.
super hard." I was like, "Man, they're definitely worth their salt, man."
Man, our medics, dude, there is no one on the planet as good as they are.
Yeah. And well, and I tell people about the Ranger medics. I'm like, Yeah, you want to know a Ranger medic?" I was like, "This dude can keep you alive, but also kick a door down and clear a room like nobody's business." I'm like, "They're still Rangers, all right? They know how to do
100%.
it. They might set
Yeah.
the breach on the door and blow it up and then walk into it, or you never
Yeah.
know, man." Most people think the medics are just out there wandering. I was like, "Oh, no, not
No,
the
man.
medics we had."
They'll keep you alive, but they'll also kill you real quick.
Oh yeah, yep. Not us, other people. Yeah,
Yeah, it depends on what side you're on.
yeah. Uh, but yeah, so they ended up stabilizing me and getting me onto the helicopter. When the helicopter came down and flared, I could like feel it, like Afghan dust, dirt,
Ugh.
debris, all the feces just hit me in my open wounds. And at this point, I've got everything. Half my clothes were blown off, my equipment was all disheveled, so they cut it off. So I'm like butt naked in this thing. And then it just dust hits me. I'm a giant desert sugar cookie, and I'm like,
Oh man.
that was actually grosser than kneeling on the bomb, I think, because I'm sitting there going, I know what's in that. That's so gross. Ugh,
I'm a walking infection. I'm not even
yeah,
walking. I'm
this
just
is
a
not
laying infection.
good. If the bomb didn't get me, this nastiness might. I don't know. But so they end up medevac me out, and we get in there into the area, and they're stabilizing me and stuff, and I'm conscious the whole time. Like I never went unconscious. Like I was
Wow.
awake for the whole thing. And so they get on the phone with my wife, and they able to call her up and let her know what's going on. And she's getting the feedback, and they're letting her know the initial reports. They're talking, like,
How
hey,
did she handle that? Was she okay?
oh, she handled it like a champ. Yeah, people are like, "Man, you're a tough guy." I'm like, "My wife's tougher." Like, like, just saying. I'm like, she did a lot with the FRG, with the Family Readiness Group.
Yeah.
So she was, critical in that. So when guys got injured overseas, she was a part of the group that would go out and like talk to the wives and be with them. So I mean, she was already, kind of prepared for that. So when it ended up happening to her, and all the ladies are like, "You're not falling apart," she's like, "It's gonna be okay." Like we, she had that peace about it to be able to
Wow.
handle. So
That's
she
so good,
didn't.
man.
Yeah, she didn't take it hard. And they've given her the initial reports. They're like, yeah, they're talking about him being blind, that they're going to amputate his left hand, and that he's probably going to be paralyzed from the damage that it did to my left side of my body. Because kneeling on the bomb, it jacked up the whole side. I had shrapnel in my abdomen and my kneecaps, all different random places. Even 6 months after the recovery, I was still pulling slivers of metal and stuff out of my body. I
Oh
had this
wow.
little jar. I'd be sitting there and I'd be like, "Ooh, splinter!" Pull out this big sliver and throw it in the jar.
That's wild.
Yeah. Oh, I do have the plate. I can pull that up and show you
Oh
right
no
here.
kid. So this is it, man.
Yeah, this is the pressure plate switch, which I taped up the objective name so you don't see it, but
Yeah,
yeah,
perfect.
so these 2, this one was made out of coffee can lid, and this one was, like, some scrap stuff that they had, but these were daisy chained, together, and then there's some of the ball bearings that they pulled out of it.
Man, that is wild.
Yeah, they were able to give that to me. What was cool is they did the report on the site, like, they sent EOD out there to go check it, and they're like, from the width and the depth of the crater that was used and the type of explosive, because it was H&E that they were using in it. He was like, it was his words first of saying that it was a miracle, because he's like, the size and the type of that you knelt on, it should have blew both your legs off at your waist. You should have bled out instantly. He's like, I've never seen anybody kneel or step on one of these and sit here and talk about it. So yeah, that
Wow.
makes your faith rise. I'm like, even if I am blind and they amputate my left hand, I knelt on bomb, should have blew up a Humvee, and I'm here to, live about it. So that was pretty wild.
Man, that is insane.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, I can see you. I got I got full function
And
of
I
my
can
vision.
walk and I can
Yeah.
move.
Yeah. But yeah, and when my wife got the call too, so it was August 18th of 2009 is the Purple Heart date that they gave me, on my awards. That's the day that it happened. Well, that happened in Afghanistan, 2 a.m., August 18th, which is actually August 17th back in the States, right? Because the time
Right.
change. So August 17th was mine and my wife's 7th year anniversary. So my wife thought the call that she was receiving was me on a sat phone to tell her, happy
Happy anniversary.
anniversary, I love you, these different things. And it was, hey, he nailed on a bomb. He's all jacked up. So
He got blowed up.
yeah, he got blowed up. They're trying to
Man,
put
that's
Humpty Dumpty back
crazy.
together again. So I tell people, I'm like, dude, the greatest gift God gave me on our anniversary is that I didn't die, you know? In
Yeah.
2009, I should have died on that. I mean, there's no reason. I know some of the guys were saying, "Oh, they put the bomb upside down and they did this and that, and that's why it did that." I'm like, that's not how bombs work. I don't know if you know that. And the sniper rifle that I had in my hand was disintegrated. Like they never found it. It's unrecoverable.
No way.
Chunks of stuff all over the place. Yeah, it was in my hands when I knelt down, and they couldn't find it. A lot of my kit was blown to pieces. Like and, yeah, so and then the night vision, I mean, people were asking, they're like, "Why didn't he have his eye pro on?" And I'm like, "'Cause the eye pro would have stopped the bomb." That's how that would have worked. So, I'm just like, "Y'all are
Where
crazy."
was his PT belt? We need it.
Dude, I can't even make that up, dude. First sergeant, which it was over the HHC at that time, that was his question. Why was his eye pro not on? Like my eye pro would have protected night vision goggles from getting blown into my face. And
Right.
I'm sitting there half delirious, and I was like, my glasses fogged up, and I thought it was more important to look through a sniper rifle and provide security than to have my eye protection on. I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
I was being a smart aleck. I was on some fentanyl too. They gave me that lollipop, so I did not care, dude. I was just like, that's stupid. But
Yeah.
and they're trying to do things and square things away. Like this could be prevented. We need to do a report on this. Yeah, report. Don't kneel on bombs. That'd be great.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah,
next time, Perkins, we're gonna need you to
yeah,
not kneel on a bomb.
yeah. But if you do, make sure you got your eye pro on, because maybe a PT belt would have helped too. So a PT belt and some eye pro, you'd have been a
These
solid
are
ranger right there.
mission essential items, the difference between life and death.
Yeah, but how much did he hydrate? That's the real question. Okay, did he take an ibuprofen and did he hydrate? If he didn't do that, he's
Right.
not fulfilling the Ranger Creed. All right, so
Exactly. When he was kneeling, was he facing out?
yeah, was he? So you had him faced out.
Had he faced out?
Yep, got him every time.
Oh man, dude, that is wild, man.
Yeah, so I went 14 days in intensive care, going from Kandahar to Bagram, and then Bagram they flew me to Landstuhl, Germany, and that's when they started doing like the debridements and stuff and the surgeries because they couldn't do those operations in Afghanistan because it just wasn't sanitary enough to be able to facilitate it. And when they did that, I mean, I received a ton of negative reports. They're like, "Yeah, we're gonna have to take your hand. You're gonna be blind. Like, you might not even have your eyes after they get it." Like, they flew me from Afghanistan to Germany still with stuff in my face. They didn't even wash me, man. Like, I was still covered in because I had all the burns, and they were
Yeah.
afraid of me going into shock trying to debrief it beforehand. And, so they're just giving me morphine, having me sleep. So I called it time travel. So I was like, I was there, time travel. I'd wake up, I was like, I'm hungry. Oh, we'll get you something. Bloop. And I'm like- and then I realized, don't ask them for food. They're just going to make you time travel.
Right.
I'm like, give me a steak. So hungry. Hungry Ranger. Hungry Ranger.
Man.
So yeah, then I got to Germany and I ended up making the recovery coming back after 14 days. And Walter Reed, it was in '09 and Walter Reed was packed. So they didn't even send me to Walter Reed when I got back. They sent me to Andrews because at that point from Germany, I was stable enough and not in critical condition. And they put me in Andrews and then they flew me back to Benning from Andrews. So that was my journey, but when I landed in Fort Benning, I mean, I still had bruises and scarring, and they stitched up my nose, and I had all this put back together, which they were telling me that they had, a guy that was doing volunteer work in Germany for, like, plastic surgery and stuff and working with scar victims that he did that, and I was like, "Dude, that looks good.
Wow.
I like my nose. It looks good." Yeah, people joke and they're like, "Yeah, you have a better nose now." I was like, "Well, just get blown up, you get a free nose." So nobody knows it but me. But yeah, man. So when I got to see my wife, finally, she didn't even know the report. She still thought that I was paralyzed and they were gonna take my left hand and I'd be blind. I ended up walking off of the aircraft and being able to see her at the hospital, and that was a cool reunion. And I was like, God healed me, and she's like, I knew He would. And she's like, I
Yeah.
didn't doubt it. She was tough, dude. Like she kept her faith. She probably had like 5,000 people in the States praying for me while that was going down. You know, not
And
giving up OPSEC stuff, but like, hey, he got injured. This is what they're saying. Pray over these things. And yeah, it was awesome. It was a cool journey.
man, and so you could see out of both eyes.
Yep. 2020 vision.
Unreal, man. And your hand, which they say they're gonna amputate, is
Yeah.
fully functional.
Yep. Yeah. Fully functional. I got all the digits.
That's so
Yeah.
wild, man.
Yeah, and well, they were starting the, medical board for me when I was in Germany, and so I had to undo that, and regiment didn't do that because when I tell this story, people are like, "Oh, man, they just tried to get rid of you." I was like, "No, they tried to square away me and my family." So they were
Yeah,
like, "Hey, if the reports are this guy's gonna be blind, he's gonna be paralyzed, well, he's obviously not gonna be in Army service," so they start that process knowing how long it's gonna take to go through the medical board. And so when I got back to Benning, I had to undo that. So had to do the PT test, physical assessments. I mean, they pinned my fingers and stuff. I'm doing all that with hooks and pins in my hand, and ended up doing it to the point that I was able to go and deploy on the next deployment, still as a sniper.
no way. You
Yep,
you went back out the very next deployment.
yep, to the exact same spot, back to Kandahar. Yeah,
Now that's where I met you.
yep, was that
Um,
deployment afterwards in 20.
yeah, so that deployment was my first deployment as a ISR guy, and
Yep.
so, that's where I met because that's where I met you because I was always hanging out in the TSE recce tent,
Hmm.
because those were my boys,
Yeah.
and I'd get out of the airplane and go hang out with the guys, and you were always in there, and so, um, it's good memories for me, man. I always felt like we had a good, it was easy for me to get along with you, you know?
Yeah. Well, I would hope so. I tried to be that, that nice, get along kind of guy and learn from everybody that I'm around.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? I think
yeah,
there's two types of people that are in Ranger Regiment. I mean, obviously, yeah, toxic leadership, but then you have those guys that are like, hey, I'm here to learn as much as I can from anybody and see different points of view and perspectives from them to grow, and we're in this together. So there's no competition, And I
right.
think that the other guys that are like more toxic are like, I'm better than you. I'm gonna do this and that, and it's like, oh no, bro, like calm down,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
Like
there
we
is a
all
lot of
have
that.
our studies and what we're good at. It's like let's grow each other. Even when I was in sniper section, dude, I would take a lot of the line guys and I'd run them through mini sniper courses. Like I would teach them. I'm like, hey, if I'm on the roof and I get killed, you can grab this weapon system and use it. And so, but you need to know how to use it because if you don't, I mean, you're not going to be able to hit nothing. You know,
Right,
you're just not going to pick up a sniper rifle, point and shoot. That's not how that
right,
works. Yeah, you need to know bullet drop and distance and target detection. Like we got to work on these things.
right.
Yeah, so I enjoyed that deployment. We got to hang out in 2010. That was a good deployment. Well, it was a
It
good
was, man,
deployment
and I
and
remember.
not a good deployment at the same time. But yeah, it was rough.
Yeah,
Rough.
that's what I was gonna say. That particular one was good and bad.
Yeah.
I was grateful to be there doing what I was doing, because it helped, one, it helped bridge that civilian life transition. It helped me go
Yeah.
from regiment to a civilian job, but I was still supporting the boys, and so that was helpful.
Yeah.
And then that particular deployment was very difficult. With everybody was getting shot and blown up, and several
Yeah.
deaths that deployment, and that was really hard. Um, but I was grateful to be, giving the support that I was giving because it was like, I'm your eyes in the sky,
Yeah.
and I know exactly what I'm looking at. Like
Right.
I know why you guys are moving the way you are. I know why Caleb's on that building.
Yep.
I
Like,
know.
what's he doing up there? He just ain't out.
Right. Um,
Be like, please
so
don't drop
yeah,
the bomb on me. That would be nice.
right.
Be like, I survived one. I don't want a 400-pound bomb.
Yeah. No, 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 thanks.
Yeah. But yeah, man, that 2010 deployment, I mean, April 23rd, 2010, that's when we lost Santora and Cubic. And
Yeah.
Santora was in the mortar section with me when he was a private. He came in and I was his team leader in mortars. And then when Deco set up, he transferred over there. He reenlisted and transferred reclass to 11 Bravo and went to the line as a line team leader for Delta Company, and then he ended up getting killed, and him and Cubic
Oh
in
man.
2010. That was in the beginning of that deployment. So that was pretty hard, We
Yeah.
when and I think that out of everything, right? Like, we're trained to capture, kill bad guys. So we process that really good. I know very few Rangers that regret anything that they did as far as like taking life and stuff like that, especially shooting bad guys. Like that's what we did. Like we
Right.
weren't not ashamed of that. I think the harder things is survivor's guilt,
Yeah.
like seeing your brothers that you bonded with, getting taken out, and then you make the excuses like, "That should have been me," you know? I shouldn't be here, they should be here, especially if they, like, had a family, like, in 2010, in July, when we left, so we got done with that deployment, and they were doing the Taliban surge. So
Yep.
there was a couple platoons that got extended on that deployment, and they had to stay for a couple weeks after to a couple months. Like it was going to be like a additional 2 month overhaul that they were going to have to stay there. And Santiago was extended on that deployment, and so
Yeah.
I'm back in the states, and then we end up getting the call that he was killed on that
Yeah.
deployment. And dude, that crushed me. Like, me and Santiago, like, you know how guys in the line, like, you're like, they're all your boys, right? All the guys
Right.
in the regiment are your boys. But you got those 4 or 5 guys that you're like, we bonded, and like we're
Right.
close. Like me and him, we would talk in the sniper cage together about scripture and stuff. He's a real strong man of faith and had a wife, 2 kids, and our families hung out together and stuff, and it was hard. That was hard.
Yeah.
Not you'd process it and be like, "That should have been me. I don't have any kids. Yeah, I have a wife, but, she coulda got remarried and, had kids later on," type deal. And you try to rationalize it and process it. I'd say out of the everything that I went through, like, yeah, after I got blown up, I had like 6 to 9 months of, having dreams where I was still on fire, and pain and stuff like that, kinda screaming in the middle of the night. Standard stuff that you get after getting blown up. And then I processed that, worked through it, and then the next deployment, end up having 2 really close friends, get taken. We had a lot of brother I think was there like 12 or 13 guys on that 2010? I think that was one of our hardest hits as far as, like,
Yeah.
not just Rangers, but soft guys. Like, there's
Yeah. It
there's
was
quite
a
a few. There's DevGru guys and CAD guys. I mean,
Yep.
there's a lot of dudes that was taken during
It
that
was
time.
that was a really bad one, man. I remember talking to one of the squad leaders that deployment, and he was like, "Man, I'm so nervous to go out because every night, like they knew it wasn't if they were gonna make contact, it was
Yeah,
every single night."
yeah,
And yeah, it was a bad trip, man. It was a bad deployment.
mhm,
Um, and going back to Santiago,
yeah,
like losing him,
mhm,
man, he was kinda like the dad
yeah.
of, because he
Yeah,
was he
me
was
and him were the
older.
old guys.
Yeah, like he was older than the rest of
Yeah,
us, and like he was like one of the only guys that would give you advice
yeah.
outside of, the regiment,
Oh, yeah,
outside of the Ranger way of life. And he'd be like, "Hey, this place is just designed to take from you, but
yeah,
your family is your team and you have
mhm,
to take care of your family." And like, so he would spin things in a different light. So he would shed values,
yeah.
share his values and say, "Hey, you're prioritizing the wrong things." And he would say things
Oh,
like
yeah,
that to you. Um, and so losing him was hard on everybody because
yeah.
he was so well loved, man.
Well, and I think that him coming in older too and having that experience, like he was in law enforcement before he
Yep.
came into regiment, and he felt that call. And I think he brought all of that experience with him, um, into regiment. And so his
Right.
identity wasn't fixed in being a ranger. He was like, "Hey, I'm a husband and father first, and
Yep.
that's where that is. This is a job, so I'm gonna do it." And where Ranger Regiment, nothing against that. A Ranger Regiment, I love and honor the time that I spent there. I learned so much from it, good and bad.
Right.
You're learning something.
Yep.
Um, but I think it shaped me, but it also, got to the point where it could become your identity very quickly. Like, a lot
Absolutely.
of the soft guys, it's like, "Dude, you're in your 20s. and you're operating at this high level, right, all the time. I mean, they call it, operator syndrome. It's like you're operating at this high level all the time, and then you make that transition, and you end up sitting there going, well, was that my purpose? Was that my call? Does it get any
Right.
better after this? Are these chapters going to be any better? And I think Santiago had a great perspective on life, and I
Yeah.
think that he was well seasoned beyond his age. And so I was back in the States when he was killed over in Afghanistan, because my platoon that I was with ended up not getting extended. And so me and my wife making that trip to, his wife Mandy, and letting her know about what's going on and everything like that,
Oh
dude,
man.
that was pretty hard. And, I even remember telling her, I was like, it should have been me. Like I should have it that should never have happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I escorted his body from Dover to Illinois. And dude, that flight broke me, dude.
Yeah.
I'd probably say I never cried as much as I did in my entire life on that flight. Obviously not in front of people. I didn't do that. I held it together, but when we were
Right.
flying and it was just me and him in that flag draped casket, dude, it was hard.
Yeah.
And it took a while to process that. But, and I had to get to that place too where I knew him, and I knew he didn't want me to, even if I could have taken his spot or his place, he wouldn't have wanted that. And I
Right.
wouldn't
He
want
was
that for anybody else either, you know what I mean? But that's why we continue to live for those guys, you know?
exactly right, man.
People ask me about this. This is a tattooed KIA bracelet on my forearm. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
I've got 8 of them, so I can't wear all of them, and I want to honor all of them. I'm like, and I'm gonna have it permanently, and it's gonna remind me to stay focused and to continue to fight under the Ranger objective, whatever that looks like in whatever context, and do
Yeah.
it for them. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man. I think that's the most beautiful way to honor the sacrifice that they made
Yeah.
is to live,
Yeah.
but not just live, like live well, live
Yeah.
with purpose, live with intention,
Mhm.
um, love hard, and just be present, be with your family. Don't don't waste the life that you've been that you have today. Like that's the best way to honor the sacrifice and the life that they lived is to live your best life.
Yeah. Well, and I think that you're right, man. I think the perspective of you're actually not quitting your service, you're continuing your service in a different perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like when guys get that, it's like, yeah, the contract's over, but this is on you. Now you are doing this sua sponte, man, of your own accord.
Of
Like
your own
you're
accord.
doing this because you have it in you to do it for your family, for your community, for whatever job or context you're getting into. If it's starting a business, like you're going to take the disciplines that you learned and apply it to that, and grow from it and continue to make a difference. You're not done, and your best years weren't in your 20s.
Yeah.
It was a chapter you honor, but it's not a chapter you get stuck in. You know, and I think that's
Absolutely.
important. I think a lot of guys have a failure to transition, and it's because they don't teach you really how to transition. They
Right.
actually encourage you not to, right? Hey, stay here, do this. We'll give you this incentive, do that. Oh, if you get out, you're a dirtbag. You're leaving us, and you're
Yep.
bonded with those men, you know? And so you get out and you're like, I don't have the brotherhood that I had. And if you think about the friendships that you developed in regiment, dude, we went through trauma bonding.
Yep.
There's nothing that replaces that. We've been in the ditches together. We bled together. We suffered together. We cried together. We lost guys together. Like there's nothing that replaces that. And so it forms that bond and that brotherhood like nothing else. And then you get out into the civilian world and you're like, you're not seeing the same kind of character. You're not seeing that, the experiences. And it doesn't mean it's lesser than, it just takes more time to develop. And,
Right.
I think guys who have already developed those bonds are not interested in taking the time to do it. And they don't value that. And I'm like, well, those guys can be brothers as well. You just got to focus on it and know that it's going to be different. They're not going to see things like you see them. And that's okay. You know,
Right.
they don't have to. You know, I'm glad people don't kneel on bombs. Don't kneel on a bomb. That's my encouragement. Don't kneel on a bomb. Try not to lose any brothers. That's yeah, that's those are hard things, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely right, man, and I love the way you said it, to honor your service without becoming it, without that
right.
becoming your entire being,
Yeah.
and that's something I harp on every single podcast episode is not letting your identity and purpose become entirely engulfed in your
Yeah.
military identity and purpose,
Right.
but recognizing that when you get out, you're gonna have to dig back down to figure out who you were before,
Yeah.
um, what you love, what you're passionate about, what values you wanna live by,
Mhm.
and like you said, take the discipline, take the tools and skills that they've built and ingrained in you and apply them, and build the life that you want.
Yeah.
Because man, if you stay in that military identity and military purpose,
Yeah.
you're setting yourself up for failure and a really disappointing life.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what happened to a lot of our brothers. I mean, you know, and I don't know all the 100% statistics on it, but I know for a fact we've lost more Rangers after the war than we
Yeah.
did in the war.
Yep.
And I mean, it's like every other month I'm getting a phone call or seeing something, you know, another Ranger took his life. And, you know, and I hate that, honestly. I really do.
I know. Yep.
Because they saw the greatest part of their life was in a previous season and nothing was going to match that, or they got into a place of just hopelessness. And it's like, dude, I know it's not ingrained in you to quit. I know it's not ingrained in you to lose hope. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think that that is like one of my things, like you said, is not having your identity in what you did, right? And if you think about it, everybody experiences it, but I think soft guys get hit harder because it is so ingrained in that because you have to have that ingraining to do the job, right?
Right.
But in every occupation, you know, think of a doctor. They end up being a doctor for, you know, 30, 40 years and then they retire. Now they feel like they have a loss of identity, you know, because their identity was being a doctor, you know.
Right.
That you could put it in any occupation or any relationship, you know, oh, I'm a mother, and then the kids leave and there's empty nest syndrome. And there's that thing. Why? Because their identity became in what they did. And it's
Right.
not a dishonoring to that. You have to do that. It's a role, it's an assignment, and it's a gift from God, but that's not who you are, you know? And so when God called me out of the service, like in 2013, I was just going to ETS out. And they ended up, USACOM, the Care Coalition ended up putting me in for a medical board. And because my med records were stacked, you know, that kneeling on the bomb was not my only injury. I got jacked up a bunch, right? And they're like,
Yeah.
no, we're going to medically retire you. And I ended up going that route. I didn't even know that was a possibility at that time. And they were like, "What are you gonna do?" And I was like, "Well, Lord said it's time for me to change this chapter and not dishonoring it, but I'm probably gonna go out and start doing youth ministry and go into ministry." And they're like, "What? Going from special operations sniper into minister? How's that work?" And I was like, "God, man, that's the only way that I can explain it." Because He called me there to fulfill a purpose and to grow and to mature and even to go through suffering. And I know people don't like that because they're like, no, God doesn't do that. Yes, God will send you through the
Yes.
fire to forge you, and you will go through difficulties in life. It actually promises that in scripture. If you follow
It's a
Him,
promise.
yeah, you're going to go through difficulty. So don't ignore it. Embrace right there. Embrace the suck, right?
Yep.
Embrace it. Be like, all right, if this is mine, I will embrace it and I will build from it and grow from it. And so when I got out, I started doing a lot with youth and went to high schools and was encouraging them about overcoming adversity. I was going into juvenile correction facilities, then I went into prisons, able to go to doing different men's conferences and helping them and growing them, doing a lot with the veteran community, guys struggling with PTSD and operator syndrome and, you know, trauma bonding. It's like, yeah, let's talk about it, man. Like those are real things, and helping them see that their purpose and their identity is not in what they did or what happened to them, right? Because if that's your identity, then you actually become a victim. I don't know any ranger that wants to be a victim of nothing, right?
Right.
That is not in our vocabulary. Like,
Right.
no, we went through it. We're not a victim. We're not going to take that. mentality or identity. And so, for me, having my identity and purpose rooted in being a son of God's is huge. We're His children, so as we're His children, whatever He needs us to do, we'll change that and we'll do that. So if it's, hey, that was you did that right, you finished strong, you did what you were supposed to do, now do this. That's okay. That's just as equally as important. And honestly, man, I've had more. Well, I wouldn't say more. I would say it's different, like satisfaction in doing what God's called me to do. I mean, I've been able to travel to Pakistan, India, Nepal, preaching the gospel, building churches, rescuing children out of sex trafficking, and seeing them being rescued and set free from that, and then giving them a new life and a new hope. Man, that is so rewarding. The first girl that we were able to rescue, she was 13 years old in India, and getting her removed from that, she was so thankful because of the abuse and things that happened to her, the trauma that went in her life. And she had all reason to be angry and hateful and spiteful. She turned it around and was thankful for getting an opportunity. And so then she went
Wow.
through a nursing program, became a nurse over there. And now she's like one of the first responders that identifies kids that are being trafficked, and
Wow.
she's helping other kids that were just like her. And I'm like, dude, talk about going through the fire, taking what you learned in that and helping others. Dude, that is so rewarding. And that's continued purpose, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely it is. And, I don't know if you have read any of Simon Sinek's stuff, but that's something that he says, like, it's very common to find purpose for your own life, after you have been through something really difficult,
Yeah.
and you turn that, you heal from it, you figure it out, you turn it, and you use it for purpose in your own life. You help people come through that thing that you walked through,
Yeah.
and, um, and that's so rewarding. It's incredible to see someone, face that same struggle that you did, and you know that there's another side to it, and you're going, "Come on, you can do it. There's this other side to this thing,
Yeah.
if you'll just put in the work." And and so seeing people do that is incredibly. It's like medicine for your soul,
Oh,
seeing
yeah.
it.
Yeah. And I think, especially for a lot of soft guys, don't try to use your own understanding to figure out what that next chapter looks for you. Like, take your time with it, pray about it, seek the Lord on it, because a lot of the guys go into contracting after that, and it seems rational, but
Right,
really they're doing the same thing that they were doing there. They just one get paid more or have less assets at their disposal. You know what I mean?
right.
Um, and but they're still going through that stuff, and they end up building more on top of it. And I'm like, hey, if it looks like a chapter change, what if God wants you to create a business? What if He wants you to work at this one place or location or whatever, and you're going to find your purpose in that? And it's like, it's okay if it looks different, you know like, yeah, i still
Absolutely.
i still do long range precision shooting, but that's not my identity. I do that for fun. And,
Yep,
I'm not out there looking for that contract position. Not saying that anything's wrong with that. I'm just saying that was a previous season of my life, and I honor that. And now I'm doing something where I'm seeing more fruit from it. You know what I mean?
absolutely, man. And I think that's a really important distinction as well, that you don't have to hang up all the things that made you a ranger or made you a soft operator or whatever. Like, there, because when I left, I hung up everything, like everything. I was like, I got to make this hard line in the sand,
Yeah.
and I'm just gonna cut it off. And that turned out to be a really bad choice
Yeah.
because I just floundered and was totally lost because, like, why would I stop shooting? I love shooting. Like, I love spending time at the range. That's medicine for my soul,
Yeah.
you know? But I stopped it entirely. And so, like, it took me many years to figure out, man, I didn't have to let go of all of these pieces that built the Ranger.
Yeah.
Like, I could have hung on to the things that were good for me and let go of the things that were bad for me.
Right.
And so I think that's a really important, thing that you a point that you just made.
Yeah. And those things were vital, especially in that area of growth that you were in. And those are skills that you were taught, even though they may not transfer directly into the civilian life. That's okay. You still have them. You know what I mean?
Right.
And if they bring you joy and satisfaction, why not do that? You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, I just kinda change it into a different context now, doing, long range precision shooting on wild game, or
Right.
whatever. Going hunting or doing target shoots or just doing competitions or just talking ballistics and rifling and, I enjoyed that because I did it for so long and, had a passion for it, but that's not my identity. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
Mm.
Absolutely.
I think those are big takeaways, but, there and if I could tell anything to any, soft operator or veteran that's out there that'd be listening to this, man, like, n you can make the transition and the shift. It is not hopeless, do not give up, and really just, connect with those brothers that are making that transition too. I remember, getting out when I was going through the medical board, and there was a sergeant major that was getting out too, and he's like, the thing they don't tell you is eventually all of us transition. And, they preach it forever. Hey, you don't have to. And what are you going to do out there? And, make it this big scary thing. But he's like, no, all of us do. He's like, even if you do 20 years or whatever, or you do 4 or 8 or whatever, there's a point sometime you have to transition and change. And don't be
Right.
afraid of change, Think about that time before you were a ranger or even in the military. There was a change that you made then, and if you could do it then, you can do it now. You know what I mean? You
Right.
just you just continue that process. Take it one step at a time. Don't let it overwhelm you, you know?
Yeah. That was actually my next question, and you just answered it. So
Oh, well,
that's solid, man. That's great advice.
yeah,
That's always how I end the podcast is like, hey, if you could give one piece of advice, what would it be?
yeah,
And I think that's sound wisdom, man. Um, yeah, it's just such solid advice to just keep going. And it's a theme that I keep seeing in every interview that I do is like, hey, don't quit. Just
yeah,
keep showing up.
yep,
Just keep at it. And it's kind of like that thing when you're doing land nav, right?
mm,
When you plot all your points, you got your map and everything, and they would always say, "Men, if you stand out here and you're looking at the wood line, it looks very intimidating,
mm,
right? But then you step into the woods, and the woods open up to you." Like I remember
yeah,
them saying that every single time. Like just step into the woods and
okay,
begin, and
yeah,
the woods open up to you, and you can see so much further.
yeah,
And it's the same thing out here
mm,
is we get so terrified and so afraid of the transition,
mm,
and then we step into it, and you start looking around, and you might see just enough to take the next step. You might see just enough to take 2 or 3 or 4 steps, but eventually it's gonna open up to you and you're gonna find your way, but,
yeah,
um, finding those things to cling to, finding those things to let go of, finding, like you said, finding that thing to truly root your identity in.
yeah,
Is it Christ? Is it God? Whatever it is that grounds you, where you're finding identity. You know, put ground yourself in that thing and commit to it. And just never stop going. The only person that can make you stop going is you.
right. Yeah, and taking the same motivation and dedication you got to get there, use that same motivation, that same effort. Like we know how much effort it takes to go into the soft community, even to go in the military. You're making a
Yeah.
voluntary commitment that other people are not willing to make. If you can make that, you can make this change. You can make this transition, you know? And I think a lot of guys, especially in the soft community, they have a fear of failure. They don't wanna
Yeah.
get out there and fail or fall, and dude, if you fall, just get back up. Like, don't
Right.
let it kick you down. Like, I don't know anybody like, we would do this all the time in regiment. We need 3 sustains and 3 improves, right? You're doing a shoot house, they're gonna tell you where you sucked and where you got it. Like,
Right.
take that criticism and get better. They're not doing it to hurt you, and, you could see it and view it like, "Oh, I failed, this and that." No, get better because people's lives depend on it. But if you would look
Right.
at people's lives still depend on it. You are leading somebody somewhere. If it's your family, if it's your community that you're involved in, if it's the workplace, wherever you're leading someone, someone's watching you. And you want to be that effective leader that shows those characteristics. That's I'm not going to quit. I'm going to solve this problem. If I fail, I'm going to learn from it and I'm going to to do better. I'm going to go and refocus it and look at it in a different perspective, you know?
Right.
And I think that's where it is. I mean, dude, I had mad respect for guys that went and failed RIP and then came back and went through it again. I'm like, you did it twice. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, or even Ranger School. You know, the guys, like I went straight through in Ranger School, but I
Yeah.
know the guys that were there for a year. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
you were in Ranger School for a year? I was like,
Yeah, man.
oh, bro. Oh, but they wouldn't quit. And they're like,
Yep.
I'm going to get this because they knew how much it was valued in regiment. And they're like, if I don't come back with my tab, I'm not going to be able to stay in this unit. So I'm going to get it. And even if that
Right.
cost them a whole year. So they went through that suffering. And that's a part of life, man. It's not going to be easy. And I think anybody that would tell somebody, hey, transition's easy. I was like, you've never transitioned. I was like, even
Right.
me being rooted in my identity with Christ, I was still struggling with survivor's guilt, still struggling with that transition and my identity as being a ranger. And I'm like, even though I'm doing this, I'm like, I'm still an airborne ranger. And it's like, you know, and you'll even talk to the Marines. They're like, once a Marine, always a Marine. I was like, if they deploy right now, are they sending you? No, they're not. Okay, then you're not a Marine right now. And
Right.
they would hate that. They would like,
Oh, they hate it bad, man.
it's so ingrained in them. But, you know, no dig on them. But, you know, I met so
Right.
many of them there, and I'm like, that was a part of what you did and who you are, and you can honor that without letting it become your identity. You know,
1,000%.
whole, you know, keep that eternal identity. You know,
Yeah.
that would be my advice to them. But yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on, man.
Oh, man, I can't say thanks enough for you being willing to do this, brother. After all these years, man, it's been
Yeah,
a long time.
yeah,
And, man, I love seeing your life. You know, I love getting to just be, witness it from the sidelines of Facebook, but I love seeing your ministry updates. And what, what's the name of your ministry? How can, if someone's listening and they want to hear more of your
yeah.
message,
Mhm.
what would be a good resource for them to find you?
It's pretty easy. CalebPerkinsMinistries.com. It's my name. Just type it in. You know, type it in, you'll find it. We have a website that's on there. I have some a couple books that I've published. They're not war memoirs, so don't be frightened. I know a bunch of guys are like, "Oh, typical. He's like the SEALs. He's gonna write another book." Be like, "Nah, I save those. I use my war talks with other veterans around campfires."
Right, right.
But the books are for you know, building discipleship, building purpose, building identity. Like that's a big thing that I see with veterans. I'm like, we need to get that rooted in. Just because you did that doesn't mean that's the only thing you can do. And there's a purpose and a calling for you, you know. So if they want to check it out, CalebPerkinsMinistries.com. I also have a podcast on Spotify. I haven't done a lot with that since I was going through my doctoral dissertation. I kind of had, you know, I had to focus on that.
Yeah, you
Right.
were a little busy.
Writing that was more painful than writing anything for general audience. I'm like, that's a lot of research, and I'm like, painful. But you know, military paid for it, so I enjoyed it, and I was like, why not? I'm gonna knock it out. So
Love it, man.
yeah,
I
if they
love
want
it.
to connect, they can find resources there, and always, you know, find us on Facebook, Instagram, all the typical things. TikTok, yeah, I made some TikToks. I know. I didn't do 'em.
I know, man.
Um,
It's a love-hate thing.
yeah. They're like, "Who's this old guy on there?" And be like, "Old? Yeah, I am old compared to you." They're like, "You were
Right.
born in the 1900s." Be like, "Yes, I was. Yeah, that was
Yes, that was me.
yeah, that
Yeah,
was."
the old 1900s.
Oh,
All right. Well, man, I can't say thanks enough. I really appreciate you being here.
yeah. Thanks for having me on, Arlen.
Of course, man. All right, folks. Well, that wraps up this episode of the Brothers Compass podcast. Stay tuned for the episode that's coming out next week. Looking forward to that one as well. See you next time.
Baby, I'm free. Hey, hey. Be the ill in the back,